Everybody's like, but it can't be that easy. Yes, it can. It really can. It is that easy. You just got to have those conversations. But you have to know what kind of conversation actually constitutes as an intentional conversation. Just saying, hey, bud, what's up? How's your mom and them? It's not an intentional conversation.
Mm-hmm. Every new agent, at least most of the ones that we've encountered, all say their initial goal is to make $100,000 in real estate, to crack 6 figures. So today on the Tactical Agents podcast, Chris and I are going to give you the exact formula that you need to make $100,000 in 1 year. So buckle up. It's so complex. I don't know if you'll be able to keep up, everybody, but
yeah, get out your notepad, get out your laptop, take some notes, because we're going to do it today.
Yeah, we're going to get so detailed. All right. Before we get into that, this is the Tactical Agents podcast, as I already mentioned. You're watching our YouTube channel. If you haven't noticed, I started putting some more content into the channel, a couple of shorts, a couple of longer form videos or different videos that weren't podcast related. You're going to see more of that in the coming weeks. So be sure to subscribe if you like the content that we put out, and tell other agents about the channel. Comment, engage. We really want to build a good community around this channel, and you'll be hearing from more people than just Chris and I in the very near future. If you want to be a tactical agent, if you want to be in and around our orbit or whatever, vice versa, then let's connect. You can be a tactical agent anytime you want for free. You can get our book. You can get the Tactical Agent Academy, all of it for free. Just go to tacticalagents.com. And if you run into any problems, just drop a comment. I do check those, and we'll get you squared away. That's the commercial. That's it.
Roll Tide.
Giddy up. Well, I don't know about Roll Tide, but we'll talk about that. All right, so we're gonna take this number, $100,000, and whatever. Like, you can, if you want to make $100,000, cool. If you want to make $1 million, cool. The same principle really ultimately applies, no matter what we're doing. And I'm just gonna take some basic numbers here, and more than getting caught up on the numbers, I want you guys to just walk away with the principle. And sometimes the analogy of, like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? It's like something that seems like a huge task. If you break it down into its simplest parts and understand what the core activity is that you need to do, that you can actually measure, then it becomes very achievable. Any amount that you want to make. So here's the framework, okay? We're going to talk GCI. So if you want to net $100,000, you're going to have to kind of figure out your tax situation and all that stuff, and know what you need to make over and above to net that. We're just going to talk GCI because, again, the principles are going to make sense. I'm going to do a really simple average price point of $250,000. Okay, I know that the average median or average national is higher, but some places it's way lower or whatever. 250 is pretty normal in my market, so we're just going to stick with that. And we're going to go with 3% commission. And I know that sometimes it's a little bit less. It could be a little bit more. We're just going to go with a standard 3%.
Commission is negotiable.
Yes, commission is negotiable.
Commission is negotiable.
You can make more.
We're just using this as an example.
I just negotiated 4.5% for a listing. Not 3. I made 1.5% more than anybody else that would have bid that job. So, and I earned it. So, 3% though. So that means you're going to walk away with $7,500 in GCI. Now, if you don't have a terrible broker, your splits aren't going to be horrible. Your costs aren't going to be terrible. So we're just going to say $7,500 in GCI. So in order to do that in a year, you're going to need 13.3 repeating deals in a 12-month period to close. So we're just going to have to call that 14, because unless you're just selling a third of a house, that's not going to work. So you've got 14 deals that you need to close in 12 months. Okay. Now, you say, okay, I get it. So you walk away with that and go, oh, I need 14 clients. And yes, you do, but you can't just put on your calendar a task Monday morning, get client. Like, I don't know how you would really say. So what is What does that mean? And this is honestly, it sounds so ridiculous, but really that's how a lot of agents are doing their planning. Go to office, get client, hope, right? Like
Yeah.
floor time, answer the phone, hope the phone rings, pay money to a marketing company and hope your phone rings, you know. So you're not really getting client, you're hoping to get clients. And that's just not a reliable metric, because getting a client or closing 14 deals is a result. It is not an action. And we confuse the two. We confuse getting clients with the action when that's really the result. So we have to ask a question that's beneath getting a client. Okay, what are the activities or key activity that I need to do, that I can be in control of, that I can schedule, that will be most likely to lead to the acquisition of a client or to result in the acquisition of an active client? Now, do you have any idea what I'm going to say here, Chris?
I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say the first suggestion you have is connect with people.
It's just, man, I don't know how you would have ever guessed that after 51 episodes or 6 years of us both being in real estate. You even longer, right? I don't know how you would have ever guessed that. But yeah, you got to connect with people. And the primary way that you're going to do that is ultimately in intentional conversations. Now, we call those frog convos, FROGG. Not going to spend a lot of time on that. Go back to a past episode where we go into more detail about frog convos, but family, recreation, occupation, goals and dreams, and geography. That last G is really, really important to bring some intentionality to the table. So you need to have intentional conversations with people that then you, out of those conversations, you seek to invest in them, and then you ask for referral business at the right time or the right way. Again, you want to get way more detailed, get into tacticalagents.com, get into the group, get the book, go back to past episodes, catch up, and a lot of this will make sense. But this is how we kind of tie it all together. So let's say that, not to add anybody to your pipeline, because you need to do that too. You need to have future business. But let's just say that what you're trying to do is close 14 this year, okay? Let's say that that's going to take you 60 conversations, okay? 60 conversations to get one client.
I was about to say, that's a really optimistic number. 60 conversations for 14 people.
Oh, no.
I was like, wow. Yeah. Okay, buddy.
Nope. No, not yet. All right. So 60 times 14, though, is 840 intentional conversations. And you're like, well, where did you get this 60 number from? Your number may be different, right? I just went through a one-page business planning thing with Sharon Srivatsa. He's the president of Real Broker. And ultimately, for an active client, like looking like the now to 3 month time frame, it takes about, historically, across a lot of data, about 59 conversations total to find that. Okay, so I'm just rounding up to 60, and it's pretty accurate for our coaching students, I guess, not even clients, but people who have listened to us. We're like, I am pretty confident that every 5 conversations I can add someone to my pipeline, but only 20 to 25% of those are going to be now to 3 months. So that's why we tease this out. And a lot of our coaching students haven't developed the skill level yet. And so they're seeing between 10 and 15 conversations to add to a pipeline. So I'm just teasing that out to say, like, 60 is a relatively safe number of intentional conversations. That's 840 conversations.
A good conservative, if you do this, you'll probably see this result number.
Exactly. So you want to do that over 12 months. So if you divide that, but I want to divide it by 11, because you have time off, right? Like you need to develop your business in an 11-month period. But you know what? As I'm saying that out loud, I'm actually going to go backwards to 9 months, because we know that if we're catching that last client, it's going to take up to 3 months till we actually find them a home and we get paid, right? So we want to do this in a year. So let's just go even more conservative and divide that by 9 months. That's 93 conversations a month. Let's say that you only want to have conversations 5 days a week, not 7, right? So that's 20 days in a month. And that's 4.6, or let's round that up to 5 intentional conversations per day to ultimately end up with 14 now to 3 month time frame clients at the average price of $250,000 and a 3% commission to get you $7,500 in GCI, and that puts you over the $100,000 mark. And you can accomplish that with not putting get clients in your calendar, but to plot out who are you going to have 5 intentional conversations with that day. And they can be anybody from your sphere. They could be a total stranger. They could be anybody. Anyone qualifies as someone.
Yeah, and there's some things that people, everybody's like, but it can't be that easy. Yes, it can. It really can. It is that easy. You just got to have those conversations. But you have to know what kind of conversation actually constitutes as an intentional conversation. Just saying, hey, bud, what's up? How's your mom and them? It's not an intentional conversation. Mm-hmm. You've got to go in depth. You've got to talk about some things. You've got to have an actual engaged, meaningful conversation with someone, right? It's not just, hey, how are you doing? So you got to do that 5 times a day. And that's what people it blows their mind, because they look at this incredibly huge task. If you're telling me I've got to have 800 conversations to make $100,000. Well, yeah, but each one of those conversations is worth almost $1,000. Mm-hmm. No, that's not what I'm saying.
No,
$10. Yeah, whatever it is. I don't know, but you hear what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that you break it down into that simple component. And again, I think that's a really good point, because you can't just take the word conversation and make it whatever you want it to mean. We're talking about a specific intentional conversation, right? Where you are, if you don't walk away from that conversation knowing what can I now do in light of this conversation that I just have, either you secure, because it comes up in the conversation, you have listened to the indicators about geography or stage of life or changes, and it comes up. Real estate actually comes up in the conversation, and you actually secure a next step to put somebody in your pipeline now or the future, right? Outside of that, you would not count having an intentional conversation in this formula unless you can answer the question, based on this conversation that I just had, I now know my next step to invest in this person in word, deed, or gift. If you don't know that answer, then you didn't have an intentional conversation. You had a conversation, but not an intentional one. And that is not to say that regular conversation is a bad thing. It's not. But we're not talking about just general chit-chat. We are talking about a highly intentional conversation. And notice we did not say that intentional needs to be disingenuous or it needs to be inauthentic. Quite the contrary. No, it's got to be the real deal. You got to really be you, and you got to really care. But if you don't have intention, then you're going to miss the opportunity in front of you, right? You're not paying attention. So that's what we mean with intentional conversations. And so not only should you add 14 clients that would be buying or selling this year, but you should be adding even more people for the future. And keep in mind, guys, that we're talking 14 deals need to close. That could be 7 clients if it's a sell buy, right? It's very likely that you won't need to have 14 different clients. It may be 7 to 10, maybe 7 to 12. So it's even, the numbers are, like I said, I'm skewing them in favor of a pretty high margin of error on your part, but that's the formula. It's pretty straightforward. And you're like, well, what if I want to make 250,000? Change the numbers. What if my market has average of 350? Cool, change the numbers. What if I only make 2% commission? Cool, change the numbers. Right? Like, it's literally just about frame in the math, and
it's X plus Y equals Z.
Yeah. And you do this for 12 months and you track how many conversations you've had. Then if maybe you find out, well, it actually took me 80 conversations. Okay, cool. Guess what? Next year you adjust accordingly based on your goals. You might surprise yourself and be like, oh, wow, it only took me 38. I averaged 38 conversations for one right now deal. Okay, cool. Now you know what you can plan on the next year, and you can accelerate your goals. You have more room to grow than you thought you did. So, it's flexible because it's principle based, not just plug and play. But yeah, that's it. You can do this.
Yeah, just make sure you track your numbers so that you actually have an accurate picture of what it takes and you're not just guessing.
Yeah. And you can't have 59 conversations with no conversions in clients and say, well, this doesn't work. You can't do it. You have to have the 860. You have to, because it's a law of averages. There's not little flags in the ground. It's not like running a marathon where there's, it's tracked every 10th of a mile and you see, I've gone this far. That's why you can't get hung up on the results. You have to be committed to the process. That way you can track, here's what I've done. What has that resulted in? But you got to give it a long enough period of time to actually make it make sense.
Yeah, if anybody's ever heard our formula on what it takes to be successful in the business, there's a very key part of that is, over time, right? Like it's consistency and intentionality over time. That's what's important, is the overtime part. Sorry, I have a migraine today, so if it sounds like I'm a little off my game, I am. Mike's picking up the lion's share for sure in this conversation, but
it's all right. Yeah, but I just want to take the mystery out of this, and it is very common, especially with new agents. Well, what are your goals? Well, I'd love to make 100,000. I don't know what it is about that number,
dude. I have, over the course of my real estate career and running a team of 50, 60 agents, I have interviewed hundreds of people, and I have had exactly one tell me that their goal was not $100,000 a year. It's not even six figures. It's $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
I had one person say as much as I can make or something like that. I was like, oh, nice. But yeah.
Yeah. So if that's you, we're not knocking that. I'm just telling you how to get it. Like it's there it is. Just go do it. And measure the right things. Because if you're like, man, a month went by and I have 0 clients and I should be at 1.3, like you're measuring the wrong thing. You've got to measure the activities that can lead to results, not chase the results and haphazardly approach different activities, because you're going to do the wrong things, right? And these conversations can be generated in any number of ways, but you have to have them. And the greater your level of intentionality behind them, the greater your skill will develop. So put yourself in the right frame of mind. And, it's nice to look ahead, and then we'll wrap this up. But it's nice to look ahead at your next day and think, where am I going and what am I doing where I'm going to have these opportunities? And you learn that you don't even really need to, like, quote unquote, be on the phone, right? In terms of like, I've got to get in and dial the phone on expireds or whatever else. Like, you can do that. But what if it's like, I know that I'm running over, like I had to go to some clients today. They had a death in the family and they reached out to me completely unrelated to real estate, but they're clients and friends. And they said, hey, we need you know some stuff about guns. Can you come help us sort out values and stuff like that? So I went over there and I know I'm going to that house. Oh, well, that's 2 conversations right there. Like I'm having 2 intentional conversations at my first appointment of the day. So I'm integrating that in with my day. I'm not saying like trying to come up with random strangers. I have plans through the day, and I know that, for example, I'm teaching a jiu-jitsu class tonight. There's going to be, usually half dozen or more people there. So I know out of that group, I should have at least one intentional conversation with somebody. And so I can plan my day accordingly to hit these goals versus trying to stress out about where am I going to have these conversations. Just integrate it into your life because you're coming across people. And if you're like, well, I don't talk to anybody. Well, this is a people business. You're not going to get clients out of talking to no one. It won't happen. So go meet people, join a club, get involved in something, go where people are at. You're like, if you want to fish, you got to go where fish are swimming and hanging out. That's it.
Yep.
So, all right, we're going to shut up. We try to keep these things at about 20 minutes. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please give it a like or a follow, subscription, whatever. Drop a rating and review. We appreciate that. It helps the show grow and reach more people. And that was episode 51. We'll see you on the next one.